Hi, I'm Stacey Summerall. Welcome to Called and Caffeinated. Today I'm talking about why my husband and I decided not to so-called test drive before we took our wedding vows. This is a topic that is probably going to be sensitive for a lot of people, and I know a lot of people come at it from different angles and have a lot of their own thoughts on it. So this video really isn't for people who are looking to just tear down what I am saying and what I think. I'm really making this video for people who think or would like for it to be possible to wait until marriage, but you maybe don't have enough support around you, or you would like to know what it's like and is it worth it and why would anybody choose to do that. And if you're genuinely curious and you would like to hear my perspective, then this video is for you. Let's go. We've all often heard the saying, I would never buy a car without test driving it. True, but the fact is that people are not cars. We're not cars. When you buy a car, you exchange money for a vehicle that you expect to do things for you. You expect it to be able to get you from point A to point B. And so, of course, it makes sense that you would have an inspection and you would test drive it, make sure that it fits your lifestyle. But marriage is a very different covenant. When you engage in married love, you are exchanging not money for services. We have a name for that when people do that with each other, but we have an exchange of persons for persons. That's the meaning of a covenant. Just like when we go all the way back to the Old Testament, when God makes a covenant with the Israelites and he says, I will be your God and you will be my people. We exchange ourselves with one another. And that's not something that you can just test drive. That's not something that you can give it a go, give it a whirl, and then see how it works out. And so the simple fact is it's comparing apples to oranges to say that you need to test drive or that such a thing would be even possible between people as if you're buying a car. Because the fact is, when you take your wedding vows, you're taking them for richer or for poorer, for better or for worse. That's a permanent promise that you're making. You're not saying, I'm giving myself to you as long as you give me pleasure and make money and take care of the kids and have this number of children. There's no conditions. You just say for better or for worse. And so the question, it's not that compatibility isn't important or that side of marriage, lovemaking, isn't important. It is. It's just that it's not something that you can try on for size, and it's not something that you include as part of your covenant in your wedding vows. You give yourselves to one another unreservedly without conditions. You're imitating God's love. God's love for us is unconditional. He says, I love you no matter what. I say that to my husband. He says that to me. I love you no matter what. So there's no test driving. You can't do that. The other thing, okay, let's talk about compatibility too. In my experience, when my husband and I got married, the first time is not going to be the best time, okay? This is why we take our permanent vows. We grow together. Is it awkward the first couple times? A little bit, sure. You don't really know what you're doing. You're just figuring it out. But that's fine because you have this security. I just can't imagine if you were test driving and you were expecting this person to give you all this pleasure, and that was a condition upon which you were going to marry them or not. That's not really a setup for a great marriage, because compatibility can take time to grow. You have to take time to learn about each other's preferences and bodies and what you like and what you don't. And that's how you grow together. And it has been, in my experience, so much more fulfilling, so much more wonderful than I ever thought possible. And yes, so much more joy and pleasure than I ever thought possible in marriage. Even, just like I had, pretty high expectations. My husband's a good looking guy and we're both healthy and young and we love each other. And even beyond those expectations, our marriage has really just blown me away as far as the actual amount of joy that we have derived from our intimacy. It's really about giving yourself. It's self-donation. It's self-gift. Pope John Paul II said, Man cannot find himself except through a sincere gift of self. And I have found it to be true in marriage that if you're not both giving 100% and giving unconditionally, then it's the whole vehicle, the whole thing falls apart. I'm using the word vehicle too many times in this video. Marriage is supposed to image the Blessed Trinity, which is the love of the Father pouring himself out to the Son, the love of the Son pouring himself out to the Father, and the union of their love, the closeness of their love produces a third person, the Blessed Trinity, sorry, the Holy Spirit, who in our marriage is, imaged by our children. It's not an exact analogy, of course, but that total self-gift actually produces new life. And this is our vision for marriage. We're Catholic and we believe what our faith teaches us, and we really had a hard time. I'm not going to pretend like it was easy. It was not easy to follow this, especially when we were engaged. I felt like it was torture sometimes. But there were a couple things that we did that really helped us to stay chaste until our marriage. And the first thing was we just were never alone in like a house together or in a room together for like long periods of time. We would have conversations alone, or we'd go out on hikes or go out on dates all the time. And we would sit down, like say on the sofa and talk, while we were engaged. But we always knew that like my parents were in the next room or his parents were in the next room, and, they weren't listening in or anything, but we made sure first and foremost to just guard ourselves, because we both know we're not made of stone, we're not made of armor. We're people. We want each other, we love each other. So we just had to kind of set that boundary and enforce that. And that was tough, but it really made it very much a lot easier. The other thing we decided that we weren't going to do is we were only going to kiss. And that was it. He'd put his arm around me. We'd give each other lots of hugs, of course, and we would kiss. But beyond that, we weren't going any further. So that was also very helpful, just because the boundary was clear. And if one of us started to slip, then the other one would bring them back. And the third thing we did was we prayed a lot together. We prayed a lot. We really made it a part of our meetups. We were long distance our whole engagement. So when we saw each other on the weekend, there was all this like built up, emotion from the week, and we were so excited to see each other. And that made it extra hard to like say goodnight at the end of the night and leave one another. But it was good. It was so worth it. And, we made prayer just a part of our dates and a part of our time together. And we would pop in at churches when we could. And I think God really gave us a lot of extra grace. So I was blessed with a man who really believes the same thing that I do. I've seen it happen, and I have been part of relationships in the past where one person is not fully convinced that this is the way that they want to live, and so that it becomes really hard for the other person to kind of pull them along. And if neither of you is very convinced that this is the way that you want to live, then it's going to be pretty much impossible to maintain. But I was very blessed with a husband who has a strong moral character and strong convictions. Before we got married, I saw him struggle through that and win that battle, and it gave me so much respect for him. And same thing, vice versa with him. He knew it was hard for me, but we feel like we overcame that struggle together. And it was a good setup for marriage, because marriage is really hard and it's going to test you to your limits. And if you can learn to deny yourself, starting even in your engagement, that's going to set you up for a really happy marriage. I know it sounds so counterintuitive, but marriage is full of self-denial. You're called to lay your life down for one another. Like I said earlier, it's not about what you can get, but it's about what you're giving. And so we've had to deny ourselves many times, especially now. We have 4 children, and waking up in the middle of the night with the baby and getting up early with the babies. Our 2 youngest have a 5 a.m. wake up time, and that is, I hate that. I hate getting up at 5. I've never gotten used to that. But, John will so often get up for me early with the children, and I'm so grateful for that, so that I can sleep a little bit more. And there's just so many moments, especially special needs parenting, so many moments of self-denial. And I can look back at our engagement, I can see the seeds that were planted that are bearing fruit. So in my opinion, my honest review, is waiting was 100% worth it. It was worth it because once you're married, you have the rest of your lives together. You have the rest of your lives to grow. It's just the beginning. It's just the starting line. I invite kind comments below. I ask for your prayers for our marriage. I'm praying for everyone who would like to be married someday and hasn't yet found a spouse. I'm praying for you for a good and a holy spouse to come along. And it truly is a beautiful vocation. My husband and I love each other more after 7 years together than even before. You know, it's amazing how each new child, each new life change, each year that goes by, we really do love each other more. Not to say that it's easy, but it's possible. And I highly recommend waiting. I highly recommend giving it a try and praying to the Lord to give you grace and praying to find someone who's on the same page as you. Okay, thank you for tuning in. God bless you. You know, I would never buy a car. I've often heard the saying, I would never, I can't say it.